That's good. Good working. Bless you. Okay, so n is what here? How many terms do I have? 6. A1 is -2, and an or a6 is -7. So now I'm going to plug in. So I have 6 times -2 plus -7 divided by 2. Okay, so that would be 6 times -9 divided by 2, which is -27. Is it okay for your sum to be negative? Yeah, because you're adding a bunch of negative numbers. So it's okay for it to be negative. Questions? Okay, so what happens when I'm not given one of those things? Because, of course, that's, how it worked at the beginning of the chapter. We kept taking things away, and that's the same thing here. So, again, I need A1, I need AN, and I need N in order to plug into the formula. And sometimes I'm not given all those things. Okay, so am I given A1 here? Yes. Am I given AN, the last term? Yes. Am I given N, the number of terms? No. Okay. So I'm going to have to use your rule for arithmetic to find N. Okay, so I'm going to have to use AN equals A1 plus D times N minus 1. Could you sit here and figure out what term that is? Yeah, you could. But I wouldn't suggest that when the sequences get to be pretty complicated. Okay, and so I do have AN. I do have A1. Do I know D? What are you changing by? 5. So I do have that, and I don't know N minus 1. Okay, so the only thing, or I don't know N. The only thing that I'm missing is that N, and I can solve now for that. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 4. So I get 40 equals 5 times N minus 1. What would you do next? Okay, how many people would distribute the 5? That's correct. How many people would divide by 5? That's correct too. If you wanted to just divide by 5, then you wouldn't have to distribute it. Okay, that's up to you. However you see to solve it. So it seems like most of you would distribute, so I'll do that. So I'll distribute the 5, add the 5, and then divide by 5. So N would be 9. So what does this mean again in terms of my sequence? There's 9 numbers or terms. So that means that the 44 is the 9th term in the sequence. Okay. Do I now have everything I need to plug into the formula? Yes. So the sum would be 9 times 4 plus 44 divided by 2. So 9 times 48 divided by 2 would be 9 times 24, so 206. Questions? Okay, why don't you guys do part B? And I'll come around and help you if you need it. Write down, notice how I write down on the side what I have and what I still need.
Because I don't think she'd be able to survive the time, to be honest.
What?
I don't think she'd be able to do
Yes. Right. It helps them too.
It does.
Okay, so it looks like I'm missing n again. So an is 100, negative 150. A1 is negative 6. What's d? Negative 6. Good. Okay, some people messed that up on the quiz. Like the numbers were actually getting going down and they were negative, so you were actually adding d, not subtracting there. Okay, and so I'm going to add 6 to negative 150 to solve. So negative 150 plus 6 gives you what? Did anybody do it differently than that? Okay, and then distribute the negative 6. If you distribute right at the beginning, like at this step, then the 6's cancel actually on the same side, and then you don't have to worry about subtracting anything. So either way is fine. Okay, subtract the 6, and then divide by negative 6. So n would be 25. So however you solve it, you should get 25 for n. Any questions on that part? Then I just plug back in for the sum. The sum would be 25 times negative 6 plus negative 150 divided by 2. Careful with your negative signs there. So the sum would be, I think it was negative 1950, negative 1,950. Okay. And again, that negative 1,950 is all of the terms added together. Okay, let's look at this next. Yes. Okay. A here, let's write down what we know again. So A1, AN, N. Do we know A1? Yes, it's 5. Do we know AN, the last term? No. Okay, do we know N? What's N? 20. Okay, they're saying it's going to the 20th term. Do we know D? What is it changing by? 3. Okay, so I'm going to plug into that same formula over and over again in order to find AN. Now, the nice thing about finding AN is that you're not really going to have to like move anything because it's on the side by itself already. So 5 plus 3 times 20 minus, you just have to plug that in your calculator and figure out what AN is. Okay, so AN would be 5 plus 3 times 19. Okay, and so that would be 62. Okay, now I have A1, I have N, and I have AN. Do I have enough to plug into the sum? Yeah, so I have N was 20, and then A1 plus AN divided by 2. So that would be 67 times 10, so 607. Because there's a non-calculator part of the SAT, I just like to mention kind of things like this for you. You know, this might look complicated to do in your head, but 20 divided by 2 is 10, and then you just have to do 10 times 67, okay, and get the 670. So that one, you know, wasn't too complicated to do without a calculator. Let's see if you can do part B. Before you start, or before you find the answer, do you expect the sum to be negative or positive in part B? Should be negative, right? Because they're going down and you're going all the way to the 50th term. So you're going to have more negative numbers than positive numbers you're adding. Do you think it's helpful to kind of make your list on the side of things you have?
I always mess this up, but there's some negative numbers
You look up plus a negative 2, or you can do minus 2. You don't need one. You don't want to be accepted. You just don't commit to one of them and just be like strong about it. So either you like plus or negative, or you like not. No one. Okay. Or you just go back to the leader. Okay, you just like. Okay, yeah, so you, this is it. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I am seeing some different answers for AN as I'm walking around, so be careful. I think it's 16 plus, this would be negative 2 times 49, so that would be negative 98. And so 16 minus 98 should give you negative 82. Okay, so I kept seeing some different answers there, just be careful. Any questions on that? Okay, then find the sum. And so the sum would be 50 times 16 plus negative 82 divided by 2. So you were right, the sum does end up being negative 1,650. Yes? This?
Yeah.
Negative 2 times 49. Or you could do negative 2 times 50 and then plus 2. That would be fine too. Okay? Other questions? Okay, flip it over. So, listen. Okay, series and summation notation. So, series is the sum of the terms in a sequence. Okay, and so that's what you've been doing this whole time. You've been finding the series. Anytime it says find the series or evaluate the series, that means find the sum. Okay, summation notation, and you might see this like on an SAT or something. Okay, it kind of looks funny. Looks like this weird shaped E thing. That means sum in math. Okay, and it starts with a term at the bottom, so this is your starting term. And then it goes up to some number at the top, and this is the nth term. Okay, so it tells you right there in that first part what terms it wants you to add together. And then it's going to have some sort of rule written here. Okay, and this part is the rule for generating the terms. The term. Okay, so the beginning tells you, hey, I want you to go from the first term to the 20th term, and this is the rule that's going to generate all your terms. Okay, so we're going to just kind of practice this down below. You still need the same things for the formula. So you still need A1, AN, and N. Okay, some of it can come right off of just looking at it, and some of it you're going to have to actually calculate. So for example, to calculate the first term, if this is the rule that generates the terms, and I'm starting at term 1, what do you think I have to plug in for N? 1. So I have 3 times 1 plus 9. So the first term is 12. Okay, and if this is the rule that calculates all the terms and I'm going up to the 15th term, what do you plug in for AN? 15. So 3 times 15 plus 9. 45 plus 9 would be 54. Okay, n, you don't have to do a whole lot of work, but you do have to look at this. If I'm going from term 1 to term 15, I have 15 terms in my sequence. So that's 15. Now, that's not always just this top number, because if I started at term 2, it wouldn't be 15, it would be 14. Okay, so you have to be careful. You have to know, look at the bottom and at the top there. Okay, now I have everything I need to plug into the formula. So the sum would be n times a1 plus an divided by 2. Okay, so the sum is 15 times 66 divided by 2, so 15 times 33, 495. Okay, why don't you guys try part B? So write out A1, AN, and N, and see if you can find all those pieces. Careful when you plug it in, because that 2 is negative in the front. Let us know if you need help. Okay, so for term 1, I plugged in 1 for n, and I got 2, because negative 2 plus 4 is 2. Term an, I plugged in 28, because that's where it goes up to, and I got negative 110, and then there's 28 terms in the sequence. I plug it into the formula, and you get 1,568. Any questions? Okay, let's try one where it doesn't start at term 1. Okay, so here it doesn't start at term 1. So to find A1, or the first term, I'm actually plugging in 6. Okay, so to find the first term, I'm actually going to plug in 6 because we're starting at the 6th term in the sequence. Tells you right here. Any questions on that? You plug in 6. Okay, and so when I plugged in 6, I got 53. Oops. Okay, then when I find an, the last term, what am I going to plug in for n? 12. Good. Okay, so that's 29. Is this sequence increasing or decreasing? It's decreasing. They're getting smaller. Okay, n. N is a little tricky here. Okay, you have to know how many terms are between 6 and 12. 7, okay? Because, think about when you did 1 to 15. It was 15 terms, right? Not 14. So it's always like you subtract them and add 1. So if you think about it, it's the 6th term, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12. There's 7. Okay, because you're counting this term and this term. So it's always, if you subtract them and add 1, that will give you your n. So there's 7 terms in between those. Questions there? It's the only kind of tricky part of that. Okay, so then my sum is 7 times 53 plus 9 divided by 2. Should give you 287, I believe. So make sure you can get that. Okay. Why don't you guys try part D? Let us know if you have questions. Okay, so for the first term, I had to plug in 4, not 1, because it's starting at 4, and so I get 28. For the last term, I'm going to plug in 11 and get 42, and then there's 8 terms between 4 and 11. Questions on that? If you don't know, just write it out. Like, you, okay. Where was it? There we go. You can always write out like term 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and you can just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 terms. Okay, and then I plug into my formula, so the sum would be 8 times 28 plus 42 is 280. Questions? Okay, you might be asked, the last thing that in this section is to write your own summation notation. I do not care how good your little E thing is, okay, so as long as it kind of looks like an E, it's fine. It's more important that you get the rule and all the pieces together. And so in order to write the rule, we need to know like the term we're starting on, which would be term 1 here, and what term we're going up to, which we don't know. Okay, we don't know the n, but we do have the an. So I have a1 to be 5. I have d being 1, that's just going up. Okay, and I have an being 12. So you can either count them all or you can plug into the formula to find n. I don't know n right now. So an equals a1 plus d times n minus 1 would mean that 12 is an. I do know a1. D is 1, and I don't know n. Okay, so I'd have to find n. So if I subtract the 5 and get 7 equals n minus 1, and then add 1, so n is 8. Okay, so now I have n is 8 and all of this information, and I can plug into my sum formula. Okay, and so I'd have summation, this little e thing. I'm starting at term 1 and I'm going up to term 8. Now I need a rule that generates these terms. Okay, and you guys have been practicing writing those rules the whole time. So we need to figure out what the rule is. Okay, so I have an equals a1, which is 5. Yep. Wouldn't n be 4? Oh, because there's 4 numbers here. There's terms in between here that aren't written. Okay, so that's 12. So if we subtract 5, you get 7, and then add 1, that would be 8. Did you solve it a different way? Okay, this is 4 plus n, not 4 times n. Okay, so now I'd have an equals 5 plus d times n minus 1. So I'm writing the rule. Distribute the 1, just like you have been, and combine like terms, so 4 plus n. is your rule. So all you have to write next to the summation is 4 plus n or n plus 4. There's your answer. Okay. Questions? Okay, let's try this one again. This is the hardest part of it. Okay, so what is my A1? 5. What is my D? 5. What is my AN? 100. Do I know N? No. Okay, so I have to find N first. I'm going to plug everything into my formula, the same formula we keep using over and over again to find N. AN is 100. A1 is 5. D is 5. Don't know N. Okay, and I want to make sure that we didn't, so that Ashley and I were talking up here about what she did at this step. So let me solve it the way she did in case you guys are solving it this way. Okay, so you have to distribute the 5, which was correct. Okay, and then when she combined these, she made it like times the n instead of adding to the n. And that's where the mistake was. And I could see a lot of people doing that, so I wanted to mention that. But here, the 5 and the negative 5 cancel. So 100 equals 5n. Divide by 5, so n would be 20. Okay, so again, tell me in words what this means for this sequence. There's 20 terms. The 100 is the 20th term. Good. Okay. Questions? Okay, so I'm going to write my little summation. I'm starting at term 1. Okay, they don't tell us there's any term above that, so n equals 1 to 20. And I need a rule that generates these terms. So you can go back and solve for the rule, or you might know the rule by now. Okay, so an equals a1 plus d times n minus 1. Distribute the 5. 5 plus 5n minus 5. What happens to the 5s? They cancel, so the rule is 5n. That's just finding all my terms. And that should, again, make sense to you, this rule, because when you plug in 1, you get 5, and when you plug in 20, you get 100. Okay? Good. You guys are doing a good job with this stuff. The quizzes were very good. Most of them have been graded if you took it and completed it yesterday. So you can check online, but some people